Baby, here I go, start the show. Beat on my heart, now about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good, what I'm feeling.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday, happy Friday Eve, and welcome to this week's episode of Ignite Your True Self. I am Ericka Sallee, your host for tonight's show, and I do want to take this opportunity to welcome you back for this week's topic. And for those of you who may be joining for the first time, let me take this opportunity to welcome you into this space and to take a few moments to briefly introduce myself. So, as a speaker, a self-help author, and transformation success coach, I help women and organizations to figure out what stands in the way of their success. And the best part about that is getting to be able to share the strategies to help move beyond those barriers to create the best versions of themselves, and hence the conversation around igniting your true self. It's all wrapped into one package where we get to be well mentally, physically, spiritually. We get to live fulfilled and purposeful lives. And that allows us to be happy and to be able to share the gifts that we have with the world. And so these are conversations to just give you a little bit of enlightenment. You know, there's things that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's personally or professionally. And sometimes we don't realize the barriers that are forming or have formed or have been a part of our makeup for such a long time that it prevents us from moving forward to do exactly what we want to do, to reach goals, to even set goals, which we're going to get into in just a few moments. And so this conversation is just intended to give you a little bit of a spark to help you to keep moving forward to that next best action. I wish that I could say I coined that phrase, the NBA, but that was actually something that I heard from women's basketball, college women's basketball champion Angel Reese, who described that as a part of her team's philosophy to take the NBA, the next best action. And so these conversations in this week and every week prior to and those weeks to come will be intended to give you just that, those little sparks to just keep you moving so that you continue to strive toward whatever best looks like for you. So before we get into tonight's topic, I do want to just put out a couple of reminders. First of all, it is April the 27th, and that means that it is still Black Women's History Month. And so I want to take this opportunity to just give kudos to those of us who are doing amazing things to make our world, our communities, our families, our churches, our organizations, our neighborhoods, our politics that much better because we exist and we're showing up. So tonight, I want to highlight Dr. Ruth J. Simmons. As president of Brown University from 2001 to 2011, Dr. Simmons was the first Black person at the head of an Ivy League institution, Dr. Ruth J. Simmons. And so I did not know that. And I tried to find historical women that we don't typically hear about. Like we hear about the Oprah Winfreys and the Rosa Parks and the Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris. All of the figures that are present or who have been present in our history that we do need to make sure is taught to our children so that they understand the foundations of the world that they live in. That's a whole nother conversation that I won't get into in this show, but I did want to mention that. And so being able to connect with other women in history, other Black women in history, as this month suggests, is very important. And so even when this month is over, we will indeed continue to celebrate the contributions that Black women are making to the world that we live in. And so what I want you to do is, as you're watching the show tonight, if you happen to be joining me live, or if you come back to see the replay, I do want you to use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. Notice that True Self is spelled TRUSELF. SELF. There is no E, at least not in this spelling. So as you hear the aha moments, or if there's something that resonates with you and you want to post that in your social media circle, then I do encourage you to do just that. And I also ask that you use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. So let's go ahead and get into the topic for tonight. I want to talk about why you keep postponing your life goals. Now, what I realize is that we've had a lot of conversation from the beginning of the year up until now, really talking about this idea of promoting your best self, of achieving goals. And so the very first show that I launched on January the 4th or the 5th, whatever the first Thursday of the year was in January, we talked about goals. And I would encourage you to go back and check out that show. You can always go to my YouTube channel, to the live section, and you can just scroll through all of the shows. They're posted there. But we talked about the difference between goals and resolutions. And so, excuse me, as I was preparing to take a drink of water so I can continue to talk, as I was preparing for tonight's show, and I thought about this whole idea. Here we are in April, and it's hard to believe, but I do have to say this really quickly. This is April the 27th. That means that May is knocking on the door. Like literally, if you do like this, May is like right there. So here we are at what's getting ready to be a turning point, May. So January, February, March, April, we've been now at 4 months into the new year, getting ready to go into month 5. And so when we talk about goals, the question is, if you look at what's happening in your space right now, and you ask yourself, okay, why am I postponing? Like if you really sit down and you say, okay, what am I doing right now? And if you think about the fact that, well, maybe I'm not quite doing the things that I want to do, or I talked about doing some things and I'm just not there. And here we are at the end of another month and you're going on and on and on. The question is, why do you postpone your goals? Now, this is also a piggyback from last week's conversation. And last week's conversation, and again, you can go to the YouTube channel and you can find that live, or well, it won't be live, but you can find that conversation. The real reason why you keep procrastinating. That was last week's topic. So this week we're talking about why you keep postponing your goals. And they're kind of sort of linked. And because there's so many different layers to each of those conversations, it's fitting that they would kind of be connected. Right. So let me just share a couple of the issues or why you might be saying to yourself, okay, I'm not going to do the things that I want to do, or haven't done the things that I want to do. Here's one of the reasons why that might be happening. It may be that you haven't even defined goals for yourself. Okay. It's one thing to say that you're postponing your goals because the assumption is that you've already written them down, you've created them. But the flip side of that is, you know what they say about assuming, is that assuming makes an ass out of you and me if we are trying to make some guesstimates about certain things. But on the other side of that, you might be postponing your life goals because you haven't even defined what they are. Like you literally haven't sat down to think about what those goals might look like for you. That's one reason why. Okay. And I'm going to share these 3 reasons, but then the most important part of the conversation is to give you the tips to then say, okay, well, if these are the reasons why, then what do I need to do about it? Because that's really the essence of igniting your true self, to get some really quick tips that will help you walk away from this conversation and say, okay, now let me go get to work. Okay. So the second reason why you may be postponing your life goals is because you may be sitting there saying to yourself, okay, but I got to have this right, this, and this. Like you got to have everything mapped out, dotted to the nth degree, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, all the answers, all the. And until you get the all the, then you're not going to go for it. You're not going to set out on the action path to achieve those goals. Okay, that's the second reason. And then here's the last reason why you may be postponing your life goals, is because it's so very easy for you to sit in the bleacher seat and pull out your pom-poms and you're looking at everybody else and you're like, yeah, go girl, you got it, do that, I see you. And you're like getting everybody else pumped up. And you're like, I'm in your corner. I got you. You got this. You know, you can call on me for anything. And you're always there for the next. But what about you? What about you? I'm going to ask the question again. What about you? So tonight really is about you. And so if you're watching this and you know there's something that you have been wanting to do, or maybe you don't know what that thing is, and you're saying to yourself, well, you know what, I'm really not satisfied and I'm not happy, I'm not feeling it, there's something missing, I just don't know what it is, right? That could be you. So I want you to understand that I am speaking directly to you in this conversation. And I want you to know that now is the time, April 27th, 2023 at 7:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This right here is the time when you say, okay, I have been postponing my goals long enough. I have been postponing the me time long enough. I have been postponing that little burning, yearning down on the inside of me long enough. And now it is time for me to do. Now, if you're saying, okay, I hear you, but how do I do that? There she is. Good evening. I've always thought goals were supposed to be big or really small, therefore insignificant. All right, so let me just let me tackle that comment for a minute, because I think that's a very important thing to mention, right? Because I'm sure that you're not the only one. So you've got one end of the spectrum. This goal is really, really big, or you've got another end of the spectrum and you say, oh, this is a little small, so it's not that important. Let me just tell you, that is true, really, really big. And so is this true, that the goal can be really, really small. However, the untruth or the myth about the goal that feels small is that we often say, well, because it's small, then it's not really that important. And what I would say is that no matter what size the goal is, whether it's big on this end of the spectrum or whether it's small on this end of the spectrum or anything in between, if it is important to you, and if it is something that you feel is going to get you to your next best version, that is going to help you ignite your true self. Now, let me tell you what true self is. True self is I'm living fulfilled, I'm living purposeful, I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm healthy, mind, body, spirit. If whatever that goal is going to help you feel that way, then it is significant, no matter the size. Okay. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I am absolutely sure that there are so many of us out there trying to classify, well, where does this fit? Is it big? Is it small? Is it medium? You know, what do I attack first? How do I do it? It really is a mindset that says, if this is important to you, if this makes a difference to you, if this betters you, then you classify it however you need to, but recognize that the level of importance is only important to you. Okay, so if you want to add some more to that or put another comment, if we can have a dialogue, then that's fine. But I just wanted to address that because I think that was a very important comment. So thank you for making that. So let me first get to tip number one. So again, this conversation is all about why you keep postponing your goals. And if I say one of the reasons is because, well, have you even thought about it? Well, then obviously tip number one is going to be to define your goal. To define your goal, like what is it that you want to get done? What is it that when you look at the landscape of where you are right now, you say, okay, if I look at right now, in order for me, and I see where I am here in this space, in order for me to get to next, then I've got to set a goal for myself. That's the first tip. Define whatever it is. Define it, because we can't move towards something unless we've said what it is. We can't move towards something unless we've gotten really, 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 really clear. Okay. So I know that many of you who are watching have heard the term or heard the acronym SMART goals. SMART goals. Now, I'm going to go through the acronym really quickly, and then I'm going to point you in the direction of a resource. So SMART goals, the S is for specific, the M is for measurable, the A is for achievable, the R is for relatable or reasonable. It could go either way. You might hear it framed differently depending on what resource you're looking at. But it all boils down to the same thing, and I'll explain it in a minute. And then the T is time-based. So specific is, okay, let's just say you set a goal for yourself and you say, well, I want to lose some weight. And I use weight as an example all the time. Number one, because it's easy to relate to. I think everybody, no matter who you are, where you are, what time you listen, you can relate to a conversation around weight, whether you're having it for yourself or whether you're in conversation with your girlfriends and you know that that's part of what you discuss. Okay. So let's just use the example. I want to lose weight. All right. Well, that's not specific. Okay. Specific means you're putting something around that. So as opposed to saying, I want to lose weight, you might say, my goal is to lose 10 pounds. The 10 is very specific. Okay. You might also add on to that. My goal is to lose 10 pounds by July 31st. Okay. That's very specific. All right. So measurable. How can you measure that? Well, this is a place that I'm getting ready to jump to, but I'll come back to that in a minute. So just flow with me. So the measurable is, well, how do I measure that? Well, you can measure what your weight is right now. You can put the plan of action in place to eat differently, to incorporate physical fitness. And then you can say, okay, if I start today, then in the next 30 to 45 days, I'm going to weigh myself again. That's very measurable. So you can see where you are and you can see whether you need to keep moving on that path or you want to course correct. Okay, so that's measurable. Achievable is something that is going to be something that you're going to be able to do. So let me say like this. So if you're just starting out, you might say, oh, I'm going to lose this 10 pounds. That means I'm going to work out 7 days a week. Well, is that really achievable? Like, is that something that is realistic for you? Because if you have not worked out or haven't worked out in a while, then working out 7 days a week might be fast and aggressive. And then you might lose interest or wear yourself out before you've had an opportunity to achieve your goal. So make it achievable, something that you can actually do. So it might be, okay, well, I'm going to start working out 2 days a week. And then you adjust that as you build your stamina. Okay, that's achievable. Relevant is, why is this important to you? Well, it's important because in order for me to be the healthiest version of myself, in order for me to have the strength and the stamina and the energy to go out there and be my true self, then it's relevant to me, my health and my well-being. And then time-based is sort of what I use in the beginning of the example, is that by July 31st. So that means that you get to check yourself by July 31st, but you're also putting other time increments in between to check on yourself. Okay. So I wanted to take the opportunity to go through that because defining a goal is something that needs to have a little bit more meat on the bones other than you just saying, hey, I want to do this. Okay. So if you need to relate to that acronym and have a specific example, I'm going to direct you to go to my website, truesynergy.org. If you go up to the very top of the page, you'll see a resources link. And if you click on that link, you will see a SMART goals worksheet that you can download. And I have specific examples for each of the letters of the acronyms. And then I have space for you to actually write out what your goal is. And you've got a guide right there to help you navigate through that. I shared this at the beginning of the year when I talked about goals versus resolutions, but I wanted to bring it back to this conversation because I think it's relevant here as well. So you can go ahead and download that worksheet. Okay, so let's get into tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to start with what you have. Remember when I said sometimes we wait for everything to be perfect. It's got to be this way. I got to have this, and this. And oh my goodness, I can't move until I get this. Well, the reality of it is you and I have something that we can start with. We have something that we can start with. So I'm going to go back to the example. Like if your goal was to lose 10 pounds by July the 31st, and you say, oh, but wait, I'm waiting until I get paid in 2 weeks so that I can sign up for this gym membership. Well, that's 2 weeks away. But the reality of it is you really could start now with what you have. Like the weather is nice. So let's say over the next few days, weather's nice. Oh my goodness, you mean I can go for a walk? Well, that's starting my fitness routine. Oh my goodness, you mean to tell me that I can get meal planning ideas and I don't have to wait for 2 weeks when I get the gym membership, when I get the money to do it. I can start with what I have right now. That's the answer to the question. You absolutely have enough to get started with. All right. So let's say, for instance, you want to start a business. I'm trying to give different examples because I realize that people are in different stages of their lives and their goals might look different. So it might be an everyday goal, that might be a smaller goal, or it might be something a little bit bigger. So let's say you're a great baker. You make amazing desserts and pastries and all of these things. And you love it so much and you say, gosh, I really want to start a business, but I don't have, money or capital. I don't know where my brick and mortar will be. I don't know, I don't have all these things. Well, start with what you do have. You've got recipes, you've got the skill. More than likely, you have a kitchen with an oven in it. You have friends, you have family. So if you started with what you had and you say, well, maybe I'll bake some of my favorite desserts on the weekends and I'll put some stuff out on social media. I see this. And there's one of my friends on Facebook. I love when she does this. She bakes cupcakes and all kinds of wonderful desserts. And I wasn't even thinking about her when I use this example, but since I'm talking about it, I want to mention it. But when she bakes something special or she has specials going on, she announces the locations that she's going to be. So she has people put the orders in. She says, I'm going to be at this location, and this location on this date at this time. Come and pick up your order. And I'm like, she's not waiting for a brick and mortar. She's not waiting to, and this is, I'm just using this as an example. I don't know that this is her story or even if she wants a brick and mortar, but I'm just going to use this as an example so that you can get the point. She's not waiting until she gets X, Y, and Z to be able to deliver her craft. She's starting with what she has. She has an amazing talent. She has amazing recipes. She has people that she's connected to. She has transportation and she has locations that she doesn't need to pay for. So when you think about why I keep postponing my goals and you say, well, I'm waiting for this, that, or the other, ask yourself this question. What do I already have that I can start with right now? Even if it is a computer or a laptop or a phone and you say, well, I need to research some stuff. Okay, that's fine. But you don't have to wait until other things come to be in order for you to start with what you have. All right. So whether that's a device for you to look up information because you want to get some ins and outs about what it is you're trying to do, or whether you already have a skill, a talent, a gift that you can start using in the smallest way, if that makes sense, Or if it's other things that are available to you. Okay, well, maybe I don't need to wait till I get paid to get a gym membership. I can go find a free app and download it on my phone. Okay, i.e., that's what I do. So I'm just saying. So when you're thinking about making those excuses for why you're not achieving, say to yourself, well, what do I already have that I can start with? What do I already have that I can start with? Let me give you a really quick example. I'm going to move on to the third tip. I had to kind of, and I can't remember if I shared this last week. And if I did, okay, I'm sharing it again. Last week, I had an exercise that I had to do for myself. So I had to erase all the things that I had on my whiteboard, some things that I have outlined personally for me. And as I rewrote some of my, the overarching true synergy looks like this, and here are the things underneath of that, is the very question that I asked myself. So what do I already have for each of these categories? So when you really think about what you already have, it gives you absolutely no excuse not to move forward. Okay. So stop postponing, procrastinating, putting the kibosh on, saying, I'm going to get to. Stop doing that with your goals and start with what you already have. Okay. Because I know so many of us have more than what we think. All right. Tip number 3. Remember when I said we could be sitting in the bleachers, we got the pom-poms out, and we're like, yes, go, go, girl, you got it. I'm here for you. I'm going to support you. I know you can do this. You got this. How many times? Just ask yourself this question. If you're connected with anybody on social media, which obviously you are, because if you're here in this space, that means you're watching me on Facebook, on YouTube, or LinkedIn. So yes, you are connected on social media. How many times have you looked at someone's post and you have commented or you have said, you got this, I see you, but yet you don't see yourself? How many times have you supported ad nauseum somebody else's efforts, their goals, and you just ignore your own? I want you to type it in the comments and say me. Just be honest. So tip number 3 says, okay, well, one way to stop postponing your goals is to say, you know what? I'm going to start cheering for myself. I'm going to still support other people and what they're doing. And I'm going to still tell them, you got this. I see you, girl. But I'm also going to look in the mirror and say, well, wait a minute, hold up. Okay, I see you. I see myself. So let me start cheering myself on. Let me start cheering myself on because I'm going to use what I already have. Let me start cheering myself on because I have written out my goals. Let me start cheering myself on because I know the goals that I'm attaching myself to are just that important to me to help me be my best version. So yeah, I'm going to cheer for myself. I'm going to celebrate myself, and I'm going to celebrate myself for what I have and what I may not necessarily have, but I know I have the ability to get. Did you hear what I just said? I just want to know. Yeah, like quite often to the question, how many times do you cheer other people on? And when it comes to yourself, you don't even think twice, because sometimes you might not even think that you are a reason to cheer for. That's probably a conversation for another time. But I want you to make tonight, this afternoon, this morning, well, I don't know what time it is for you when you see this, but I want you to say to yourself, this is the day, this is the time when I stop playing around and I really, really define myself in such a way that I'm like carving out a whole brand new me in some cases. Time is fleeting. And dare I say, time is passing us by. So if you're sitting there and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, I'm going to get to it, I'm going to do it, I know, I want you to stop doing that. I really, let me say it this way today, and I said at the beginning, I'm going to say it right now, and then we're going to close out. I want you to say, this marks the spot. You know how they say X marks the spot? right? You put an X on it and it's right here, bullseye. This is the time, the moment for you to say, okay, let me stop playing around, because I'm too important to me to sleep on myself. Okay. So let me go back through these tips again. Number one, why you keep postponing yourself, postponing yourself. Okay, well, that could be true. Why you keep postponing your life goals. I want you to, one, define the goal. And even if you've defined a goal, you might say to yourself, well, I did define the goal. Go back and measure it against the SMART formula that I gave. I'm not going to go back through all the details as I do the recap. But if you say to yourself, well, I already set a goal, go back through and say, well, is it smart enough? And go to the website, truesynergy.org, go to the resources tab and download. And matter of fact, the SMART Goals worksheet is the first thing in the resources section. So download that. And if you've already made a goal, say, okay, is it specific? Is it measurable? I said I wasn't going to go back through, but I'm doing it. Is it achievable? Is it relevant? Is it time-based? So you can check yourself there. If you haven't set any goal, then set it and measure it against that SMART formula. Okay. Now, here's the thing I want to mention also, and that is, if you start with one, like, trust me, I know there's so much that needs to be done. Okay. Whether it's personally, professionally, in your business, in your family, I know that we all got a whole lot, myself included. So to reduce the level of overwhelm, and that was another topic a few weeks back, pick one thing that tonight you say, all right, this is where I'm going to start. Just pick that one thing so that you can define it. You can start working in that, and then you can move on to something else later. Okay, but the first tip, define your goal. Okay, second tip is start with what you have. Stop saying what you don't have. Stop trying to make sure you have, 15 things perfect when you already have 3 things that you can start working with. So start with what you have. And then lastly, when it comes to your life goals, if you don't support yourself, if you don't cheer for yourself, if you don't give yourself a pat on the back, if you don't do it for yourself, then who else will? So be your cheerleader. Don't wait for somebody else to give you permission to do it. Don't wait for somebody else to say, okay, go, you got this. Don't wait for approval from somebody else. Well, this is my goal. You think that's okay? No. If you sit down and you ponder that in your heart and your spirit, don't ask anybody for permission. Yeah, you might need some help along the way, but connect to the people who are going to support you, even if they don't understand it, or they say, well, it's not something that I would do, but if this is for you, then you go ahead and do that, right? But don't wait. And that's also tied to starting with what you have. If you is all you have, then you start with you, okay? And be your cheerleader constantly. Rah, lift yourself up. And there are going to be times when you set out to achieve a goal and you're like, what in the world? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Was asking myself that a couple weeks ago. What am I supposed to do? Okay, but bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. There's a whole conversation that I could get into. For those of us who are here in Baltimore, the big news in the sports world, the NFL, is that Lamar Jackson has signed a 5-year deal with the Ravens. And yes, he bet on himself because he did not have an agent. That's a conversation for another day. And I probably digressed a little bit, but I'm excited. I just want to let you know, because I just want to, see how all that's going to work out. Okay, so let me move on. Let me check the comments again real quick. Before we wrap up, sometimes I want the goal to be attainable, but a part of me will believe it may not be attainable. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we feel that way, because sometimes we say, oh my gosh, this is big. How's that going to happen? Let me tell you, I got a whole lot of that going on right now. But at the end of the day, here is what might help us with that. If you take that goal that feels like it's so big that you're like, oh gosh, is this attainable? If you start with some little pieces, and I think I mentioned this last week, to take something that feels so big and break it down into small, manageable pieces, so that you're not just looking at the end game, oh God, that's so big over there, but you're looking at the 5 things that lead up to it. And you say, oh, wait a minute, I got this one little thing done over here. Oh, wait, so that is achievable. Okay, well, let me move to this. So you get to feel successes over the course of those little small things as you're moving toward that big thing. All right. So I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I do get that sometimes that's the reason why. And that goes back to the conversation that I had last week about procrastinating, because we're like, oh God, it's too big, it's too much, I don't know. But if you just take those little teeny pieces, those little pieces can go a long way to pushing you toward getting more accomplished than what you thought you could. Okay. So I know I gave you a lot. There is a lot in this conversation that's really there, it's layered. So these are just some really quick tips to give you for tonight, to say to yourself, okay, let me stop playing around, and in a minute I got to go get my stuff out of the oven, so that I can eat my dinner before it gets too late. But anyway, so if you have questions about what I shared, as a matter of fact, and let me just wrap this up. If you have questions about what I shared tonight and you say, okay, I hear you, I see you, heard what you said, took some notes, I'm gonna go download the worksheet, the SMART worksheet, and I'm gonna get to getting and working on it. And you still have questions and you say, but I need something specific to me. Reach out to me at truesynergy.org. At the same top of the website, close to where the resources are, there's also a contact tab. So you can contact me and say, I just need 30 to 45 minutes of your time so that I can figure out where I am now and how to get to next. That's a discovery session that doesn't cost you anything except the 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. So just want to make that available to you. You can also check out my social media handles on my Linktree, which is Linktree / true synergy _ I was trying to say that really quickly. So that you can follow me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube at Ericka Sallee, and you can follow me on Instagram at True Synergy _ If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, share it out, and then turn the notifications on so that when new videos are uploaded, that you are notified, so that you can check those out. So let's get into next week's topic. Next week, we will be talking about, I know this seems like a really long topic, and I guess it is, but 3 ways that you're repelling the very people that you need to attract into your life. Oh, I can't wait to get into that. Some real life stuff happening that says, oh yeah. But anyway, so join me next week. We'll be talking about 3 ways that you could possibly be pushing those people away that you need to be bringing into your space. We're going to talk about that on next week. So I do encourage you not only to come back and join me in the conversation, but I also ask that you bring a friend to join you with me in that conversation for next week's edition of Ignite Your True Self. So listen, I appreciate you being here with me on this evening. I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. But until I do, I want you to take care of yourselves and yes, be well. Good night.